Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Community Connection with Ryan Sauers. Really excited today to get to catch up with a great person and friend of mine, former chairman of the Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners, Charlotte Nash, joining us today. Charlotte and I were talking shop before she came on. Charlotte, my friend, how are you?
I'm great, Ryan, and I hope you are as well.
I am doing great. And, it's nice. We're here in Atlanta, but it's nice to see some warm weather for a few days, isn't it?
It certainly is. We've had our share of cool weather, and probably we'll have some more before the end of the winter.
That's the way it goes. But I can see glimpses of it, and we see glimpses of vaccinations and stuff happening. So I'm optimistic we're going to have a nice spring and fall. Well, I was just reading before we went on air. I get your last board meeting, and most people know you, but you served the county for what? How many years? In Alcoa?
I was a staff person for almost 28 and then served almost 10 as commission chair.
And you did an amazing job of doing that. And I guess you finished up, was it December, this past December?
That's right. The official end of the term is midnight on December 31st. So that's when the official handoff occurred.
Official handoff. And I guess you guys didn't even get to do that in person, did you?
No, and typically it's not done in person. We of course had our last board meeting the second Tuesday in December, so second or third Tuesday. So there weren't official county items going on but the second half of December.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, because there are people who say, because this show, once it becomes a podcast, is all over the place. So why don't you just real quick tell us a little bit about Charlotte and your family, and I know you're a big family person. Just a little bit about your background, who you are, and when you did get into that county commissioner role, what your focus was day in and day out. How about that? Just a couple minutes.
Sure, that sounds great. You'll have to cut me off if I talk too long.
No, that's good.
You get me started talking about.
I'm good. You are great. You go for it.
Well, I actually have lived in the same community I live in now my entire life. My dad's family settled in that area almost 200 years ago. So deep roots in the Decula Harbins community. I laugh. My husband and I both went to school at Decula. Actually, we're high school sweethearts before disconnecting and then reconnecting later and deciding to marry. We laugh because he lived in a different community in the Decula area, but he wasn't moving me out of Harbins. We're here on family land in the Harbins community. Michael and I have been married over 48 years and have a son and a daughter. We have 2 granddaughters, and the ruler of our household though is our little dog, a 9-pound Shih Tzu poodle cross.
Oh no, I gotta say, so you have a Shih Tzu, a little. Okay, I do too, and yes, I just want to jump in there. I agree with you. They think they control everything, don't they?
Well, Oscar does control it. He has us very well trained.
Okay. Sorry, I digressed. Back to you.
No. We, as I said, we're on family land. My husband even still has a small herd of cows. We have one horse left in the pasture. We no longer have too many of those, but I grew up on a farm. My dad had chickens and lots of chickens, a big chicken operation. And I grew up as a farm girl right here in Gwinnett. I'm sure many people question whether this was ever an agricultural community, but it definitely was.
Yeah, it's funny you said, Charlotte, because I was a DeKalb native, and we're both local Atlantans, which I know people say y'all are from here. You get that. You're from, sorry. But yeah, back in the day when I would go out, even towards Snellville-ish, from that, it seemed way out.
Right.
So, you now see every piece of land. Unfortunately, I mean, it's great for growth, but it's kind of sad to see every last farm being, built upon. And it's a kind of a double-edged sword, I guess.
Well, I tell folks all the time that I feel very ambivalent about the changes in Gwinnett County. And I'm talking about changes that happened 40 years ago, not just changes over the last decade, for example. There are many things about the Gwinnett of my childhood that I miss, but we also are in a very different place now in terms of opportunities in the community. It's hard to have one without the other. Change is inevitable. It's just part of life. You try to do the best you can with the change. In terms of deciding to run for commission chair, as we talked about before we went on the air, I worked for almost 28 years as a staff person for Gwinnett County. That I fell into that career by accident. I did not go to school with the idea that I would be spending my career working for a local government. My degree's in accounting, and I expected to work for one of the big CPA firms. But my husband and I married while I was in school. I was pregnant when I finished classes, and that changed my career plans. But I was commuting when my son was about a year old. I went to work for the state government, commuting into Atlanta. Even then, it was a horrendous commute, and
Right.
I started looking for something closer to home, and decided I would take a job with Gwinnett County, expecting to stay for a few years and then go back to the original plan of working for a big CPA firm. That didn't happen. I fell in love with local government. I found my niche, and I thoroughly enjoyed my career as a staff person for Gwinnett County. But I retired from working as an employee for Gwinnett County at the end of 2004. Went away, did consulting, worked with a lot of city and county governments across the state. Had a good time with that. And then my predecessor as commission chair resigned under a cloud. And I immediately began to get calls from people, you need to run, you need to run. And I said, I'm not running for office.
I remember that. So I remember meeting you right around that time. Yeah.
I said, no, that's not part of my life plan. I am not going to run for an elected office. I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing now, and really had lots of flexibility with making decisions about projects and so forth. And I knew, having worked as county administrator and CFO, worked closely with the commission chair, I knew what sort of demands there were on the person in that position. So that was not part of what I wanted to do.
But I guess, duty and service called, and know you. I remember, like I said, I remember meeting you when you were mulling all this, and I will say, as a person that's got to know you well, you were the right person for the right time for the right call, even though it wasn't in the plans. Yeah, hey, you can go still work at the CPA firms. I mean, that Atlanta commute's gets better every week, doesn't it? Right?
It does. But it was the more I thought about it, and people, made good points in terms of, this was an unusual situation in that the person that would be elected would be immediately stepping into the role as commission chair. You didn't even have the time period between the normal November election and a beginning term of service. It's hard to even think about how bad things were economically at that point in time too, because we were still struggling. It was 2011. We were still struggling with the effects of the Great Recession, and county government. The effects of a recession hit county government. The effects on a local government lag behind what's happening in the economy as a whole. So I knew that Gwinnett County government had years to go through to recover from that, and indeed, that's exactly what the case was. Since I'd served as CFO, knew the budget process well, I knew that I could do that part of the job, and I thought I could do a good job, do well the rest of the job as well. Campaigning was a different story.
not your favorite thing, right?
Well, I don't mind meeting people and that sort of thing, but it was, campaigning was not anything that I had practice with, and it definitely was a learn it as we went kind of situation.
Well, campaigning, not in recent years, but things I've run for in my lifetime. But that's what I do, sales and marketing type stuff. For me, as it's natural, but a CFO position would be, not that I haven't run, I look at numbers from my
Mhm.
companies, but that's not as natural for me to do day in day. So it probably took you out of your natural, whatever, things you were used to, but I'm sure you learned some valuable things, getting out of your comfort zone. Cause we have listeners that say, I don't like to do that, but probably did learn some things about yourself and campaigning, right?
Well, it's a matter of the situation with campaigns. You're selling yourself and your ideas. Even as CFO, and certainly as county administrator, I had to sell ideas to the commissioners. I mean, working for a committee, as the commission actually is, it was necessary for staff to sell ideas to those individuals. So I had that to draw on. It just was a different sort of thing that I was trying to sell myself, and that was the part that felt so uncomfortable. I had to get over that.
Well, you do. So it's funny. And it's funny. You reminded me about that time period. I think it was 2012. I wrote my first book, Everyone's in Sales. And the book was written to people that said, I'm not in sales. And I'm like, well, just,
No.
so actually you're always selling your ideas, even if you don't think so. And so once people got this, they got away from the position mindset to, well, if it's something you're passionate about, you are selling it. But I remember that distinctly. You guided Gwinnett. We went through the great, recession. And I think it's important with what we've been going on with this pandemic to remind people to look back at what we've come through, whether it was 9/11 or whether it was the Great Recession. That, the pandemic's been interesting simply because it's gone on for so long and it's nothing like we've ever seen. So, we have listeners. I see it. I get comments all the time with people going, I haven't really done anything in 14 months now. So what are your take, Charlotte? You got to be, you see things that we haven't seen, up until what, a couple months ago, to the people right now that are finally saying maybe spring's in the air. We were talking about warmth, or maybe the vaccine shots are coming out, or maybe we're going to get to some kind of normalcy in 2021. Any thoughts of optimism that you might share with people that you've been thinking about in the last couple of months, that you foresee occurring this year?
Well, I'm definitely very optimistic. Not just about this, but generally. You can't stay in local government as long as I did and not be an optimist of some type.
That's right. That's true.
Things are going to get better. But if you look at the different things that Gwinnett, I would use Gwinnett, but I'm really talking about the community, the broader community. If you look at what any of our communities have been through over the last several decades, the change, growth, economic ups and downs, it's civil unrest, going down the list. And yet here we are, folks are able to have their kids in school, whether they're doing it remotely or they have them in person. We have business being transacted, even if it's transacted in a different way. I think one of the things that gives me a lot of optimism is watching how the county organization flexed and did the pivots that it had to do to continue providing quality services. Local government is a little bit different from many organizations in that half or more of our employees have to work in person. You can't run a water treatment plant totally you can't fix water and sewer problems. You can't do public safety remotely. It's a hands-on kind of situation. Many of those people had to be in the middle of working directly with the public. So we had that coupled with we wanted to reduce the number of people in person in the office as much as possible. So we had a whole batch of folks within county government who were learning to work remotely. We had supervisors who were learning how to manage that. Our technology department was on fire in terms of how quickly they had to bring new systems up and get people acclimated to them. So we had a real dichotomy in terms of figuring out how to continue allowing people to work productively in a remote setting when they could, but at the same time we had to focus on making sure that we were able to continue providing those services and keep employees safe who had to work in person. It's getting through that and being where we are now. it just affirms to me the ability of the community to adjust and do what it has to do.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, this shows community connections. I mean, it can be any community, but I've seen, and I know you have, people come together in the most creative ways. And life is about change. We don't, human beings don't necessarily like change, but every day's change, every hour's change. And just, you said, coming back to Gwinnett, Gwinnett has almost 1 million people or whatever. I mean, tons of change. But there was no roadmap. I get asked this all the time about businesses. I'm sure with local government, you didn't have some manual to tell you, oh, wow, we just get, 1918 was the Spanish flu or whatever it was. I mean, I don't think people were alive then to say, here's what we did in 1918. It was kind of figuring it out and being, and we all hear the word pivot, but it's pivot and repivot and repivot, right? I mean, it was, and everybody kind of figuring it out and pitching in and working together. Is that what you experienced?
That is the case. I will say we had a little bit of a head start. And it's ironic. This is what we talk about in the emergency preparation area all the time. You can't really predict what the next emergency is going to be, but there are some fundamental things that are important to be prepared for regardless of what the emergency is. We actually pulled on some of the lessons that we learned in some earlier situations. We had in place ordinances that gave the commission chair additional powers to do things as necessary under an emergency order. I had the power to declare an emergency on my own without having to wait for the board as a whole, and that gave the commission chair and the county administrator additional powers. That was very, very important. It relaxed some of our normal purchasing requirements, and with the nonsense that we had going on with personal protective equipment, I mean, if we got a rumor of some mask of a certain type, or the gloves that our fire medics have to have, I mean, we didn't have time to wait to go through the normal purchasing process. So it's actually ironic that ordinances that we put in place after an experience we had with a tornado that hit parts of the county in 1998 were very effective in helping us move quickly related to the pandemic situation.
We all handle it really well. And, and it's just a great lesson to see. People always want to talk about the bad parts of government. That's just human nature, that people focus sometimes on the bad part of everything. But yes, the nimbleness there. And that's a great lesson, Charlotte, I think, for any person in any sector. Those little things, a tornado, you would think, what is a tornado in 1998 planning? But really, that thinking or I don't know, dissecting of what occurred there allowed you to do things probably that if you didn't have that ability, it could have been way slower.
That's right. We would have been more sluggish in our ability to respond. But I'll give credit to former Commission Chair Wayne Hill, who was in office at the point in time that he kept saying we need to learn lessons from what we just went through. We need to put in place things for the next time around. He probably was thinking more of a storm as a pandemic, but again, it's lessons learned in one area can be applicable to responding to another situation.
They can. It's funny, on a personal note, my wife was in training last year to become the the digital learning specialist at her, I can't remember the acronyms, LSTC at her elementary school. Well, this is when the pandemic began. Her first year at moving the classroom to be, and they're prepared for like a couple snow days. And I just said, you just got an MBA on the job of this electronic learning. So to your point, it has revolutionized whatever's going to occur in education or meetings. Or how do you see that? let me digress a second. How do you see meetings? We've always had meetings and we always pull people together, but sometimes people can't be in attendance. Do you foresee in the future, Charlotte, a board of any sort, not the commissioners per se, maybe some meetings are via something like Zoom and some are in person, maybe more of a hybrid model because of this time we've gone through?
I definitely think that there's going to be, I know county government will continue to, at least internally, use the virtual platforms. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have people drive from different parts of the county to get together physically for everything. Now, I'm old-fashioned enough to believe that there's no substitute for face-to-face discussions in person for certain types of, if it's a very sensitive kind of discussion. I think there are advantages to be, quite honestly, I need to see it. I need to see the person fully so that I can read all the body language if I'm in that kind, sensitive negotiation or something. But I think we're going to use the virtual platforms, not just in county government, but in society as a whole, to recognize the fact you don't have to spend time traveling to get to a meeting downtown. You can be productive, do what you have to do with that meeting virtually, and you have lots of time and energy left to go towards other things. You don't have to be on the road for that.
Yeah, it was funny. My last speech I gave, I was given a lot on this topic, and it happened to be in Las Vegas over and over. Was, I guess, late January of what year? 2020, I guess it was. Yeah, I'm trying to get my mind around it. Yeah, and we were talking about the subject back then, human to human, and I was actually talking about, because people were talking about, we don't have time, we don't have this, we've had a lot of forced downtime, we've had a lot of chances to reflect and think. And when I say that, things virtual, I'm with you. I miss the face-to-face, but I also think there's opportunities to, do we really need to sit in traffic for an hour each direction for something that's really elementary? And that's where I hope, leaders everywhere are thinking through, when we get to the other side, what can we take out of this time and apply to apply to the future?
Exactly. I mean, we take what we learn out of this bad situation and try to make things better for folks in the future.
All right. So so you've seen Gwinnett for a long time. What do you see coming down the road, whether it's our local communities or businesses, or what advice, how about this? I got a better question. What's the best piece of advice you've either given someone? Well, I got to ask that question. What's the best piece of advice you've either given someone or you've been given since this pandemic began? Or something you can think of, or a couple of things that you really continue to put in your mind, or you've thought about, or told somebody about, or they told you.
I think the same thing applies to the pandemic as to almost any sort of what feels like an emergency situation, is take a deep breath.
Yes. Yes.
You can't just jump into do anything, particularly when you're dealing with a large organization like county government, some of our businesses, or you're making decisions that affect the entire community. You have to think it through, and sometimes sometimes it's hard to get the panic feeling out of your own system. But that's the last thing you need to have driving your decision making when your decisions have such an effect on a broad spectrum of the community.
Well, I like that advice, Charlotte. I give that advice to a lot of people, like, just everybody take a deep breath or relax. But my wife and others remind me frequently that maybe you should listen to your own advice, Ryan, because I'm trying to get all these things done. And, things are just, like you said, in any part of life or anything you deal with, things change, things are different. And I like to believe there's just no roadmap as human beings to figuring everything out. It's exploring, it's learning, it's, getting a good team around you. I'm sure that's something, working all those years in the Gwinnett County government. But talk to me a little bit about the importance of the good people around you and that trust and good communication. How important is that?
Well, it definitely is important. I mean, even I'll talk about the relationship with the other members of the commission. I'll start with that from my own experience. Even though, let's use the pandemic as an example, even though the ordinances gave me a lot of authority to act on my own, it would have been foolish for me to do that without at least keeping the rest of the board aware of what was happening and why. It's a balancing act, because if you're in an emergency situation, you don't have time to go through all the details with multiple people usually, but you have to at least demonstrate the respect for the rest of the team, that while I'm making these decisions, they're going to be things that you're going to have a role in as well. Can't say enough good things about the leadership that Glenn Stevens, the county administrator, and his department director team brought to this. I mean, just the personnel management aspect of it. When you're talking about the kinds of changes, the federal and state rules that we had to deal with, I mean, I cannot describe adequately the level of respect and appreciation I have for that team that, I mean, they're the ones that slogged through the details and dealt with the people and really ensured that we continue to be able to provide quality services regardless of what was happening in the rest of the world.
Man, I can't even imagine, you know, when people think about this, you know, you got federal guidelines, state guidelines, all these things coming down. And then you've got probably, I'm assuming, you different cities or ordinances or groups that are also asking, talking. The amount of coordination trying to figure all this stuff out on the fly and get it, not panic, but not take too long must have been just, I can't even imagine. I mean, I know, you know, I can imagine what I would do one step at a time and move as fast as you can, but it's simply listening to you. So it seems overwhelming almost.
Well, it certainly was a lot to consider, and we're really fortunate in Gwinnett County. The relationship between the county and the cities is solid. And that's a good thing because there are plenty of items that would not work well if we were pulling in different directions. That was one of the things that concerned me so much at the point in time I was weighing whether to run for commission chair that initial time. I'm not sure whether you remember, but the county had sued the cities over a service delivery strategy agreement, which is something that is required by state law. And when you have the cities at odds with the county like that, it's impossible for it not to affect other things. And so many, just like the relationships among the police departments, 9 of the cities in Gwinnett County have their own police departments. For the others, the county police department serves as their law enforcement agency. And then you got the sheriff also. So all of those law enforcement agencies have to work together. I mean, it just does not work if there is disruption of that coordination among the law enforcement agencies. So we were fortunate that we had a good working relationship with the cities. I know as we were making decisions about what we were going to do with ordering changes in how business operations occurred and so forth, we worked on that with the cities, and we made joint decisions between the county and the cities about what we were going to do as a group. I can't tell you how many contacts I had from business owners who said, I really don't like the fact that y'all are telling me how I'm supposed to handle my business, but I sure appreciate the fact that I don't have to worry about whether I'm in unincorporated Gwinnett or in the city of Lawrenceville or the city of Duluth to figure out how I'm supposed to operate. I appreciate you did it in a coordinated fashion.
No, you guys did. I mean, it really, I felt, you know, I got to talk to a lot of mayors and other people and just seeing real-time stuff and how it was coordinated. I mean, it seemed about, I mean, you know, with the hands you're dealt, about as coordinated as it could be. And everybody was working together, which is so important. Well, so I'll ask you a couple more questions. We'll close it out. So have you enjoyed, what have you been, a couple months outside of office? Have you enjoyed being back at the farm and having some downtime where you're not on call 24/7, or you miss a little bit?
There are certainly things that I miss, but I will tell you that the last few years have been tough. There's been lots of, even without the pandemic, we had lots of things that were requiring personal time and energy. So I was ready. To step away. It was time. And we actually have a home in North Carolina, and I spent the month of January up there. I have lousy cell phone service there and very limited, very slow internet connection. So it was easy to disconnect at that location, and it was a good way to make the break from the routine that I had been I had in place for years.
Well, I'll tell you, well, I'm glad I didn't ask you in January, because, you know, when you do these virtual things, then but you need, you know, I'm kidding, but in all seriousness, it is important to have that disconnect time. And, when you've been in something for a long time, to kind of have time to settle your mind. And, Charlotte, I just want to tell you, you've been an amazing, selfless, humble, visionary leader for our county, and, set up the next generation. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to, I guess we're not in person, but it's the next, I feel like we are, but it was like I was telling BJ Pack in an interview recently. A lot of people tell me this all the time, man, I just really wish I could tell them so-and-so, but you took us out of, not by yourself, I know, with your team, but out of a tough time with that recession, all the way through the pandemic. And those are two I mean, what a tenure, and a career, but more importantly, it's a person, the fine person you are, and your family, and your farm. That farm sounds real peaceful. I gotta come see that one day. I miss seeing all the grass and animals, and that's something that's always makes you appreciate what God's created for us.
Well, there's a reason I decided I didn't want to be a chicken farmer, though.
Right.
It may appear a little bit more peaceful than it actually is.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that I know very little about, nor am I that handy. So I'd be more there giving you commentary. I'm not good with the chickens, but anyway, well, Charlotte, I appreciate you taking time to come on the Community Connection show. As always, it's a pleasure, and I look forward to. Well, we're not wearing masks now because we're not in person, but getting to the other side of this and seeing you in person, my friend.
Sounds great. It's good to talk with you this morning.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to sign us off here. This has been another Community Connections with Ryan Sauers, special guest, former chairman of the Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners, Charlotte Nash. Charlotte, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ryan, for inviting me.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
welcome.
it.
You're welcome. Folks, you've been listening to Community Connections with Ryan Sauers. Tune in for upcoming episodes, and we will see you next time.